solving question 6, and this is from the SAT number 9, April 2017 test. And the question says, the description of Chhotomama and the son's interaction mainly serves to do something. So here we have this mainly serves to question, which the way to interpret that is basically, let's go back to the scene and just figure out what is the scene about, and usually just pick the answer choice that matches that. And we're looking for the description of Chhotomama and the son's interaction, right? Basically how they're interacting together. So we go down to the passage. We should go up to the passage and kind of look for that. What I'll do is I'll note that these lines here sort of reference lines maybe 40 to 50 or 40 to 55. Down here we get lines 72 mentioned, line 72. So I think probably between 50 and 70. Within that range, we're likely to find the interaction between Chhotomama and the son. So here's maybe 70 is this, and then 50 is kind of like up here. And sure enough, right in between there, we get these two paragraphs here, which are talking about the interaction between Chhotomama and the son. And let's go through basically what's happening. So basically, the son comes out with the daughter-in-law, and he sort of bows down and he's touching Chhotomama's feet. And then he basically responds by he tries to keep the son's hand away from his feet, and he's saying there's no need for all this. And then we get this interesting sentence here, which says this was half a token gesture towards modesty and half towards the new modern India, Nehru's secular India, free of ritual and religion. And this is kind of an interesting text. Basically what it's saying is that Chhotomama is saying, no, don't touch my feet, half because he's just being modest. He's like, why are you giving me such reverence? It's too much. And half because he's a little more modernized, right? There's a secular India free of the ritual and religion, and this is sort of too traditional and too ritualistic for what he's used to, so he feels a little uncomfortable with it maybe. Then basically the son is saying, I've not met you for 2 years, Dada, right? And he continues to struggle to get his hands near his toes. You must not stop me. Then we get almost a repeat of the same sentence here. It says this was half a token gesture towards modesty and half towards the old traditional India, Gandhi's India of ceremony and custom. So it's almost identical, but just kind of flipped in a couple ways. So this is basically saying that the son, half of the reason why he's insisting on touching the feet is because he's being modest, right? He recognizes that Chhotomama is his elder and he hasn't seen him and he needs to show reverence. And also because he has sort of an older traditional India, right? An older culture. It's a culture of ceremony and custom. And so he's just sort of going along with the tradition that he's used to and the tradition that he thinks is appropriate. So between these two sentences, these two passages, it's really these highlighted parts that are the most interesting. And what I mean by most interesting is they're basically just telling us the most information, right? The most salient information about everything. So it's probably the text that we need to pay the most attention to. The other ones here are just more descriptive of the actions. So I would say probably these two texts are telling us what we need to know about what the interaction is serving to do. And really what they're doing is they're saying that Chhotomama is sort of a little more modernized, right? He believes in or he kind of follows the customs and rules of a modern India, right? Which is less ritualistic, less traditional, whereas the son is still a little stuck in like an older traditional India. That's the culture that he's connected to. And that's sort of the difference between the two men. And I think that's the best of what this scene serves to show. So let's see if we find an answer choice that's kind of along those lines. A says that the scene serves to show how the characters diverge in their approaches to cultural practices. So they're divergent or different in their cultural practices. And I think there's really no argument against that. I think that's pretty much what we're looking at, right? One is more modern and one is more traditional. So I think that's correct. Let's keep it for now. Then we have B, which says that they're emphasizing the character's complex relationship. And I see why a student might be tempted to choose this because there is something a little complex about their exchange, right? There's a little bit of tension between Chhotomama trying to look after trying to be more modern and the son trying to be more traditional. So it's a little bit complex, but I think compared to A, there's more problems we can find with B. And I think the main problems we can find is that even though we could say it's complex, the tension between them, I think it's a little too strong to describe it as being complex. The other thing is that it's not only just complex, but it's a complex relationship. And they just met each other after 2 years. They haven't seen each other. I don't think it's too much to describe what they have as a relationship. This is sort of just their greeting. I don't think it's right to say that this scene illustrates that they have this long-standing, complex relationship where they have different emotions or different weird dynamics between the two of them. I just don't think that this is as good as A, so we can get rid of that. C says it's stressing the character's misinterpretations of Indian history. I have kind of two issues with this. So, talking about Indian history, and the text talks about traditional India, so it kind of connects in that way. The issue with this really is that it's saying that the characters are misinterpreting Indian history, which is one, not only a negative kind of opinion of the characters, but it's also just wrong. We have no evidence to say that they're misinterpreting Indian history. All it's saying is that one person is a little more modern, the other person is a little more traditional, not that they're not understanding Indian history. So I think we can get rid of C for sure. D says that it serves to depict how the characters curated gestures that became routine. So this is pretty much saying that this little exchange that they have eventually became a routine between them, the gestures. We have no evidence for that. This is sort of a one-off moment. It doesn't talk about how this became a routine, or it doesn't suggest that it's likely to become a routine, so we can get rid of D. And that's going to leave us with answer choice A, which is our correct answer for question number 6.